Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this little bit of Aramaic on the weekend. And just so glad that you have joined us. I pray that today will be a blessing unto you as we continue in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, going to the sixth verse in these Beatitudes or Sermon on the Mount. Again, I hope you are enjoying this as much as I have. As I'm studying in these words and looking at the depth of unpacking them and the richness and the treasure that they provide, I feel like I am inadequate at transmitting just the joy I'm having at doing this. I do thank those of you that have responded with some thoughts that you've received while you were listening to the study, and I really appreciate that and encourage that. I'm blessed by it, and it motivates me. So thank you so much. Well, as we're looking at Matthew 5, verse 6, we see the Estrangala text on the top. We see the Hebrew or Shori square script on the bottom. And it sounds like this: Tuvahun, Lalein, Denaf, Nin, Vats, Hain, Lehi, Nuta, Dehinu, Nes, Ba'un, Nes Ba'un. And of course, are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Now, there's some words here that are key. Of course, we've gone through the tuvahun or blessed or ashrei as it is in the Hebrew, but the key words we're going to look at here are hunger and thirst, righteousness. And what does it mean to be satisfied? And again, there's two levels to look at this. The first one is a surface level, or the pashat, which is the easy, plain meaning, as it's called, which is just, okay, your basic needs of bodily hunger and bodily thirst. That's typically how most teachers hit it and follow it. And but we're going to look a little different to see, could there be a spiritual meaning? Could there be a futuristic revelation, the messianic era? And so that's where we're going to dive into today. So to move on, we click the Analyze button, which gives us a nice pop-up window here. It gives us a few translations to look at. There's really not much difference, except when you look at after the hungering and thirsting, um, and the result, as it's thought so far, would be righteousness. And then here we see some differences. We see onto righteousness, for righteousness. We see Lisa is using the word justice, and that'll be a key thought for as we unpack the word here and we look at the etymology, the base root of where did this word righteousness come from. And here it's after righteousness. And then at the end, they'll be satisfied, satiated, well filled, or shall be. It digest this verse pretty well. But let's take a look at this for a couple words here. C is the lamed preposition in front of the word I know, non, which is where, which. It was into an understanding of talk. Who is this pertaining to? But what's left off is the position of meaning those that are going towards or going to going in this direction, which I think it's a motivator. And then the next one is hunger, which is the a noon, but there's a dalet in front of it, which is translated. And so we're going to, on this here with this dalet, we see that the dalet is used in Aramaic as another way of saying which. So the lamed would give us the whom or to whom, towards, and the dalet give us the which tied to this word of hunger. And it's not translated, but in the it brings out just a little bit of extra. So we just want to take a look at this word for hunger. The lexicon that we have here just gives us hunger, nothing more. Well, let's see if we can find a little bit more looking up our friend Marcus Jastrow. And we go to the click here. And as we're looking for our root of the kaf um, pay noon, we really don't find anything. It jumps from the Lamed, and here we have, I'm sorry, we have the Kaf Pei Nun, but it doesn't look like the word hunger. It comes up with the word to be bent upon, to bend or bend upon. But then there's another word here that's very interesting. It says it's eager for. So if you think of what the root meaning of to be hungry for is that you are eager for food, you are maybe bending over, you're doubled over with the need for food. So this isn't just a hunger because it's lunchtime. This is as we scroll down here, it's at the point of starvation. Go down a little bit further, it talks about famine, talks about the relationship of your swelling and lying down from starvation, famine, and pestilence. So we're talking about such an intense craving that your body is thinking about nothing else. It's doubled over. It's bent upon, eager for this type of need that you have to be to hunger for this. So I really like how that gives us just a little bit of insight in this. The other thing that's used here is the dalet, means two or four, but it's also a doorway. It's symbolic for a door, like a portal. It's a way of entry. So this hunger is a propellant or a method that's taking you somewhere on a journey. So here we see the word for hunger. Then we see the word the sade, hey, ayin, noon, safit, with a vav in front, which is a conjunction saying and to thirst. So let's take a look at this word thirst by opening it up here. It's thirsty, nothing about that. Uh, Dry and arid. It also uses the word desirous. Of course, when you are thirsty, you're going to see the linking here of the motivation behind needing to eat and the motivation behind needing to drink or satisfy your drink. What's interesting here is if we go to the show verses, we find that this verse, as this word is written, is only used one time, and that's here in this verse that we're looking at. So let's take a look for our root of the Sadi Hey Aleph, and we click on friend Marcus Jastrow, and we go to page 264, and we start looking for this Sadi Hey, and we don't find this Aleph. What we find is jumping from um, the last letter here, which would be the Tav, and it jumps into the Sade Hey Vav. There is no root here that gives us any indication. And so that's very common in the Aramaic and sometimes in the Hebrew too, where you have to kind of hunt a little bit to find that. I went to another source called the Dictionary of the Babylonian Talmud, and there we find that this is brought out in a way that it lists another understanding of this root, and we're going to find it as we look in the Targumim, and we're going to open up the Sade. We're going to then go to the the Hey root. And as we look this up, we come back to the verse, which is still giving us what we were looking for here. And here is to have a drought or a thirst, be parched in the land. What's also interesting is the words around it have nothing to do with drought or thirst, but they have to do with glistening, they have to do with shining. But here we see something that drives us together is that parched in the sun. So this is like very, very extreme type of thirst that you know dries you out. Even make a reference to bones bleached in the sun where they had died, and they're bleached white in the sun. I thought that was a very interesting connection, but it does give you the idea of how desperate of type of thirst um, Jesus is making reference to. And I think that parallels well with the type of hunger, of famine, and thirst to the point of you are being parched by the sun, even a reference of the bones drying out. So from there, we take a look at this next word, which is the word for righteousness. It uses the kaf and nun here, but it also has a lamed preposition in front of it, which is meaning two or four. It could also be a direct object marker, which means that the focus is on this word. And so I like the idea of the direct object marker because if you think of what the purpose of this verse is, it's to point towards what you're supposed to be doing. It's because you can't get the result until you go through the process. And so as we unpack this word, we see that the translators have many choices here. The first word is righteousness, there's uprightness, there's godliness, there's rectitude, which has the idea of standing upright. Um, and then there is the word justice. Now, what we're going to find here is this word has very many levels of meaning, and that the word that we understand as righteousness did not exist until William Tyndale created this word. William Tyndale was a fantastic scholar and theologian who lived in the 1400s. He died in 1536, and he was the first person that translated the Hebrew and Greek scriptures into English, very much in defiance of the universal church that was in charge at the time, very much in defiance of the King of England, which kept a tight rule on the church, kept a tight people. The Bible was in Latin. Only the priests were allowed to read it. In fact, there are rumors that it was even chained to the pulpit so that no one else could even have a copy of it unless you were authorized to stand behind the pulpit. Well, that really bothered William Tyndale, and so he translated it into English because he felt that the all the common people needed to have a copy of God's Word. And he was actually the first one who started the what we call the Reformation of theology. He was influential in inspiring Martin Luther and many of the other great reformers that came after him. William Tyndale started it all, and of course, he paid for it with his life. He was condemned as a heretic and killed by the King of England. And according to the history that we have, his last dying words were, Lord, please open the King of England's eyes, as he was being burned at the stake. And about 4 years later is when that prayer was answered, when the King of England had a change of heart and authorized the printing and translation of the Bible into English for the common people. That also led to the King James Version in 1611. So William Tinsdale was the guy who really started all of this. But when he came to this word, he had to come up with a new English word to describe it because there was not a word that combined justice with mercy. And so, and putting it in a place of right living. And so he created this word righteousness in the English that he had to convey his feelings. And of course, we say this word is one of those church words that we've used, but really struggle to interpret the depth of understanding here. So let's see what our friend Marcus Jacko has to say from a Hebrew Aramaic point of view. And so it comes up as the um, kaf, what we find here is that it has a very close tie to the word kavod, which is meaning to be heavy, to be honorable, to hold precious, to show honor. But the real understanding here is one of justice. It's one of setting everything right, um, into a right way later on. And of course, what is going to happen there is this is something that only God is going to be able to do. And so this word, we see it here. We have to look a little bit further to find where we really get the base for this. And so to do that, we have to dig a little bit deeper because this word just doesn't pop right out at us. So right now, we have to go to Marcus Jastrow, page 647, actually find this word. So as we take a moment here just to look at this, we have the kaf, and we go to the kaf and the noon. Hope by doing this, it will encourage some of you to take a look at um, how we do this, because it's very easy to go to. So we go to the kaf and the noon, and we see that this is based upon something meaning so and thus. So such a purpose. So this is the basis of this word righteousness, is for something that should be so, which is equated with truth, equated with things that are to be right, and it has a purpose. And so this is very interesting because it starts our mind going on, well, what is righteousness? What is truth? It's a base, it's a place to take a stand, it's something you can rest in. And I really like how this brings this out for us, because where can this be achieved? Can this ever be achieved here upon this earth, or is this something that's going to be coming in the future, or is it both? So with that, we'll take a look at the last part of this verse here, where we look at where is this satisfying being brought from. So we unpack this fly out here. We take a look at full, satisfied. Um, again, no real mystery there whatsoever, but to be satisfied, to be satiated, to have enough. There are many different ways you can look at it. It obviously implies that there'll be no more want. And of course, we hear that in the reciting of the Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall to me is nothing shall be lacking. And so, again, a very beautiful promise that um, most likely cannot be totally fulfilled here um, by human hands, but it will be fulfilled later on when the Messiah comes and sets things up. And of course, we see it in those of us as we believe the Messiah has come, but we are filled, we are satiated, we are satisfied with that new birth experience and infilling of his spirit. So again, very different levels here of how we can be satiated and satisfied now internally, but there will come a time when all justice will be performed, all righteousness will be um, uh, mete out. Now, I want to compare a little bit on what the Hebrew gives us. Again, this is the Hebrew Matthew Harley text, and it has the word tzedakah to for that, and we've unpacked that before. That is a word that combines justice with mercy, which is why righteousness doesn't quite fit all of it. And here, looking at what I would paraphrase to say this verse says, this has a person has a constant, relentless striving to do tzedakah, which is to bring together justice and mercy together. Just a few notes that I got while I was unpacking the Hebrew equivalent of this, that tzedakah joins two concepts, that of charity and justice. Justice does not delight in punishment. Justice really wants things to be set in a right way, but it's not that it delights in this, because it's mixed with charity. We see there are many places where Jesus was confronted with those who had done wrong, and he was given the opportunity to mete out justice, but instead he chose charity, he chose compassion, he chose being merciful. And I think that's the admonition we take away from this, that we want a culture to allow everyone to have a dignified life, to live with an understanding of their equal worth, their equalness under the sovereignty of God. Um, this is just such a beautiful metaphor. And then, of course, this word satisfied in the Hebrew is a offshoot of the word for seven, which indicates completeness. It's what you use when you're making an oath to emphasize it that it's complete. And then there's also a tie-in to Ruth in the book of Ruth, that where this word is used to describe her being satisfied in her marriage to Boaz, which of course is a metaphor to the futuristic return of the Messiah and the marriage supper of the Lamb. And then the satisfaction from Psalm 17, verse 15, that I will be satisfied when I awake in his likeness. So a lot of things to think of. I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit longer than we normally go on, but I pray that we are just inspired and understand how much God loves us to give us his word and allow us to unpack it in this way to fulfill our lives and also those around about us. So God bless you and have a wonderful day and see you next week. Bye-bye.